Good evening, friends. It's Thursday. When you're listening to this, it's Thursday. But Jeff and I are recording this on the 4th of July weekend, in between celebrations of our country's independence. So how's it going, Jeff?
Going pretty good. I actually forgot it was 4th of July because I'll be working.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you know, that sweet time and a half. Why not?
Oh, yeah. Get
it's
some
not like I'm
little OT. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and it's not like I have anything to do on the 4th of July. I'm in Austin where I don't really know anyone. And I hear the fireworks in Texas are really something, but, you know, I don't really care about fireworks.
I don't give a fuck either, man. Honestly, it's like I'm probably going to be alone all weekend, except for this weekend, Rod Tang is doing a seminar at our gym, and he's like a famous Thai boxer. So that I'll see some people on tomorrow.
All right.
Mostly I'll be alone, doing my thing.
Will you be wearing an American flag gi during this?
We don't wear gis in Muay Thai.
Okay.
Man. We wear shorts. And
okay, so you'd just be wearing your Kid Rock T-shirt to show your love for America.
I might not be wearing any T-shirt, honestly, if it's this fucking hot there. So I'll just be wearing my shorts.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I know a thing or two about heat. It's amazing that I moved to Texas and somehow forgot how incredibly hot it is here.
That's what Texas is known for, is heat.
I know. I remember, the last time I was in Austin for tour was with you guys, with Tombs, and at the Emos.
Yep.
And I think that was like May, and it was already, I'm like, yeah, damn, it's hot here.
Yeah, Texas, when you mention Texas to me, I think about heat and murder, actually. Guns.
Murder, really?
Yeah, totally. And, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think barbecue, guns, things like that. Austin is its own little area of sanity surrounded by complete insanity, but it is also still Texas. So, I was at the gas pump the other day where there was a sticker of Joe Biden pointing to the price of the gas saying, I did this.
That's real clever, man. Except the fact that maybe if we actually sold the oil that we produce in this country to Americans, we wouldn't have such high gas prices, which is not the case.
Right.
We export 100% of the oil in this country overseas and buy 100% of the oil that we consume from overseas.
Right, exactly. And this is happening in the UK and other places as well, that we're better experiencing high gas prices. So it's just absurd to blame him, but it happened under his watch. So, and people want to just blame him for something. Yeah. And what's funny is I heard about this. A friend in Connecticut was telling me about these stickers. He's like, "You must have seen these in Texas." I was like, what? Actually, I haven't. And then the other day, I'm like, "Oh yeah, there it is."
Yeah.
What a funny world we live in, which I'm sure is a theme that's going to come up when we end up discussing the movie we're going to discuss. But
absolutely,
before we get into that, welcome back.
Oh, thanks.
Nice. It's been a while. You were on tour for a month?
Yeah, about 4 weeks or so.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was good. It was good to be out on the road again and see people that I haven't seen in a long time. Remind myself that playing music is like primarily what I should be doing with my life instead of sitting home by myself. So that's always good. A lot of cool stuff happened. A lot of met some cool new people. Great bands toured with, and it was good. And I can't say I'm glad to be home, honestly, but it was nice for 2 days to be, alone and sleeping in all the things. Oh, I want to sleep in my own bed. That kind of stuff was great. But after a few days, I was like, all right, when the fuck do I get out of here again?
Yeah, it was fun. That feeling wore off pretty quick. It's always great to be home. Throw your bags down. You don't unpack. You just get in your bed. You wake up the next day. You don't have shit to do, hopefully.
Yeah.
And after a few days, it becomes just, you're back to your regular routine.
Exactly.
And you didn't just spend 4 months or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, however long, away from home.
Yeah, it's a
And yeah,
really interesting feeling, man, because like it feels like when you're out on the road, like everything's so happening so quickly. It's like I got to do this right now. Then it's everything is going at like 100 miles an hour, and then you're just at like a dead stop, like when you get home, and there's like zero potential energy. You know what I mean?
oh, yeah, absolutely. And I really felt that too coming back from overseas.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
especially that. Yeah.
yeah, that's like because overseas is a totally different thing. You're going from places you're not used to anything. You don't speak. Most people don't speak the languages. You're getting food that you wouldn't normally get, or you really can't get whatever you want, or anything you're used to. And European tours for ISIS anyway were always a little bit longer than U.S. tours. Like our last European tour was 2 months.
Damn, that is long, bro.
Yeah, it was. By the time I got home, I was like, never again, never again. you know. But yeah, again, after a few days, that feeling of like, oh, home, this is great. I'm so excited to be home. And after a few days, like, oh, I'm bored. Like, why isn't anyone telling me to get in a van or go get ready for sound check or like, all right, it's time to eat,
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have my cat back again. I missed my cat.
Speaking
when I was
of
away.
cats, I bet I got a new cat.
You did?
Yes.
Nice.
It was I was at work on Wednesday and I got a text. Wednesday's my Friday. I got a text from my girlfriend saying, as soon as you come home, you have to come upstairs. There's something really freaky up here.
Oh no! What happened?
And I was like, oh no, that's it. Oh no, exactly. That's what I thought. And the whole drive home, drive home from work's about a half hour, so a lot of time to think. And I was like, it's got to be a tarantula. That's why she won't tell me what it is. Because I am terrified of spiders, as some of you may know. Absolutely terrified. And since I've lived in this house for 2 months now, I've killed more spiders in those 2 months than the entirety of the time I lived in LA. And that is not an exaggeration. They are fucking everywhere here. So that's what I'm thinking the whole drive home. I'm like, well, maybe it's a snake. A snake could have got in. Snakes aren't as bad. I'm not afraid of snakes.
A snake gets into your house? What the fuck? Where the hell do you live, man? In a jungle somewhere? Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is what I'm thinking about. So I park my car, barely take the keys out and then run up the stairs. And
you got your gun. You got your gun drawn, right?
Yeah. I had my like 6 hour or whatever. Yeah. And I just started shooting holes in the ceiling, hoping to get this imaginary tarantula. But I run upstairs and there's
Texas style.
Yeah, you know how we do. Yeah. Texas badass. I'm starting to cut the sleeves off my shirts. Yeah, so I get home, I get upstairs, and I see my girlfriend, and she just got a huge smile on her face, and I was like, what? And out from underneath the ottoman comes this 3-month-old kitten.
Oh, man,
and
dude.
What a surprise.
That's awesome.
She wanted to surprise me. She dropped little hints here and there about when we have all this space, would it be nice to get another cat, because we have 2. And then she mentioned, oh, yeah, I went to go get cat food and I saw this kitten. It was so cute. I just wanted to bring it home. So she was dropping hints. And then, the cat comes right up to me, rubbing up against my leg. So I immediately fall in love with this thing. So, you can't be mad. And for the last couple weeks, it has been a kitten and 2 grown cats just creating havoc.
Well, I was going to ask you how the other cats are managing with the new kitten.
Yeah, well, one of them, Edgar, our male cat, he's a big boy. He's probably the biggest cat I've ever had. He took to her really quickly. They seem to really like each other. They play a lot, and they also no hissing or anything. But our female cat hates the new cat and hisses at her and growls at her everywhere she goes. And the kitten just doesn't understand, just wants to play. And if you've ever had a small cat, a kitten, they don't operate on your schedule, meaning they sleep all day and then at night they just run around.
Yeah, just wild out. Yeah.
Yeah, we were keeping her upstairs, but we've been slowly integrating her into other rooms, and I was keeping her in my room at night for a while. And The first night was great, and the second night was just unbelievable terror, just tearing everything up. Was hanging off my TV at one point.
Wow.
Almost took my TV down. So it's great. I love the cat, but it has been a stressful couple of weeks dealing with three animals, and two of which don't seem to get along.
So what's what is it, a male, female? What's the name? Do you guys pick a
It
name
is yes, it is a female cat, and we named her Annabelle Lee after the Edgar Allan Poe poem.
Nice, excellent.
Yeah, because we also have Edgar, who's a black cat, which we named after Edgar Allan Poe, and Rhonda, I wanted to name Lenore, but I have a friend with a cat named Lenore, and I don't know, it just felt weird. Felt like I'd be stealing the name, so somehow we named her Rhonda, which has nothing to do with Edgar Allan Poe. But
is your lady also a fan of this kind of stuff? Like, is she into like weird fiction and like gothic horror and stuff like that?
Yes, not as much as I am, but she's definitely a fan. And she started watching the movie we're going to talk about later with me, but she kind of pieced out halfway through.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, she's into this stuff, but I seem way more into the macabre and things like that. If I had my choice to decorate the house, it would be like Grim Reapers and skulls and bones everywhere.
It would look like my place, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I have one little corner with all my sharks in jars and shark jaws and octopus in jars, and that's like paper mache Grim Reaper. But I keep it all in one corner basically, and I'm about to hang some movie posters in the upstairs area, and that's been deemed okay. But yeah, if it was up to me, the entire house would look like that. So she's not quite as into the macabre as I am.
That's awesome, man. I mean, the kitten stuff will get squared away eventually. You know how cats are when they're little kittens. They're testing everything and they're brand new to the world, and it's just it'll sort itself out.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. It's just a little stressful, and I work 10, 11 hours a day, so there's at least 11 hours where I'm not worried they're separating the cats or worried if one of them's going to kill the other one.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, and luckily my girlfriend works from home, so she can kind of be a referee. But it's great. Cats are great. They're great pets. I've always loved them. I would have as many as we could if I could, but 3 is enough.
Yeah, that's I mean, now you have a bigger space, so it's cool. It's like 3 is probably a good number to have there.
Yeah, 3 is a good number. So usually we discuss what we've been up to. I haven't talked to you for a while. You were on tour. Were you able to watch anything?
No,
I'm sure
not
maybe
really.
you read something.
Well, I was reading. I read a book called The Deplorable Word about. It's like it's not there is a short story in there, but it's mainly about like this nihilistic philosophy and stuff like that. I read a bunch of short stories on my Kindle. I have the Kindle app on my iPad, which is very, very well suited for travel. You can just have like a whole library on there and pull out a book and be like, I want to read like Thomas Ligotti, or I want to read whatever. You just have it all there, which is great.
Yeah.
But when I came home, I started catching up on a bunch of stuff that's probably old news to a lot of people. Like,
sure.
I'm up to date on The Boys, which is an incredible show.
My girlfriend is watching that and speaks very, very highly of it.
It's over the top and really, really well written and well acted. And I was a fan of the comics when they were around. But it's almost like it steps up the over the topness of the comics. But it's not. It's done like real smart though. It's like a social commentary on everything. Not like one particular agenda. Like it makes fun of like the woke, movement, liberals.
Right.
Of course, it makes fun of all these like far right nut jobs who want to overthrow the government and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And it's all done like in this very interesting setting with superheroes and it talks about celebrity, like all this kinds of stuff. It was great, and there's that comes out weekly, so it's still ongoing.
Okay. Not too many shows do that anymore.
Yeah. It's cool. I'm about halfway done with We Own the City, which is incredible. I love it.
Oh man, God, yeah. We finished that. God, it feels like forever ago at
Yeah,
this
yeah.
point.
I know. I was away, so I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I
great show. I think you're
finished.
going to be very happy with
Oh,
the
I
ending.
love it, man. It's so many great things already that I love about it.
Yeah.
The acting. Your friend is in it.
Yeah, the guy saw it eating one.
I finished up the Essex Serpent with Tom Hiddleston and Claire Danes, and
Oh,
it's on Apple.
okay.
I enjoyed it, but they play the old switcheroo with me on that one because it starts out like you think it's going to be a weird tale. There's like some coastal village. There's a legend of a sea monster. There's like this mania that's going on that the Essex Serpent is back. And
Right.
it's got Tom Hiddleston is in it, who I really think he's a great actor. I like him, as an actor.
Yeah, he's very good. He can do something serious and dramatic, and
Yeah.
he can also be part of the Marvel universe.
He's
where
very,
he's the
very
big bad
versatile.
guy.
Very versatile.
Yeah.
It's got Claire Danes, who I've always found very attractive, and I think she's also a great actress.
Yeah, she's great. The first few seasons of Homeland are fantastic.
A little bit against type for me that she's a blonde. You know what I mean? I'm not really into blonde women so much, except I think she dyes her hair because she has dark eyebrows. So that's something else I like. I guess I don't know. Whatever.
We'll have to send our crack team of investigators on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Does Claire Dane dye her hair?
So I'm going to spoil it. It turns out that it's not a weird tale at all, and there's no sea monster, and it's just a gothic love story. So,
Oh boy.
I enjoyed it, but I felt a little, like they really milk that until the very end, and then you're like, well, where's the sea monster? And then it turns out to be a whale. I'm just like, man, I was a little disappointed by that. Honestly, it would have been fine if I'd known what I was going in for.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, gothic romances. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak.
Hiddleston's in that one too. Yeah.
Yes, he is actually. Yeah, now that you mentioned it. I really hated that movie. I really hated it.
It was all right. I don't have I didn't love it, but it was I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it was too much gothic love story, not enough supernatural, and the supernatural stuff is kind of cheesy and very like digital looking. I just, Guillermo del Toro's a filmmaker that's really hit or miss for me. Like he either makes a great movie or one that just I'm just like no, I don't like it. I don't get it. I don't see what people see in it.
I agree about Guillermo del Toro being hit or miss. And I like gothic romance. Honestly, it's like I'm not, I'm that's kind of the stuff I like too. I mean, I want to know what I'm going into when I check something out. So
yeah. Well, I think it could be good, and then there were elements of Crimson Peak that were good. I mean, it's a great looking movie, but I just didn't find the romance all that interesting, and I just found the whole thing kind of underwhelming.
I like the two ladies that were in it. I thought were really cool.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro did say though, so fair warning. He's like, this is not the horror movie. This is a love story, and he was right.
Yeah.
So kudos to him for preparing you for what you're about to see.
Right, and that's why I liked it because it was I knew it was a love story, so I was like, all right, cool. It's got like period piece. There's a little bit of a supernatural element in it, but it's primarily a love story.
Right, yeah, the helpful ghost movie, which kind of always drives me crazy, where the ghost leaves clues and things like that, but never outright tells you, hey, this is what you need to do.
Speaking of Tom Hiddleston, I watched Only Lovers Left Alive last night, and I hadn't seen that in quite a while. And
very good, very good.
Great
Love
movie.
it. Yeah. Great. Jim Jarmusch is another one who's kind of hit and miss, but even his misses are interesting. I don't think I hate any of his movies, and I love most of them.
Would you consider this one a miss?
No, I loved it. I thought it was very atmospheric and just a very different take on the vampire tale. It's set in Detroit, I think.
Yeah, well, part of it, and then Tangier.
Yeah, and music plays a very big part in it. That is, I think, next to Dead Man, my favorite film that he's made.
Really?
Yeah. was great. I even like that zombie movie he made that everyone hated.
I like that one too, actually. I don't know what people were expecting, and I think that the zombie genre has been really done to death. So to see a take like that on it was welcome. At least I welcomed it, and the ending is a downbeat ending, which I like.
Yeah, and you don't expect it from what you just watched. So I thought it was a solid movie. But for me, it'll always be about Dead Man with him. That is his masterpiece. That is his, Brazil or Rosemary's Baby, or that's something he's always defined his career in my eyes. Some people may feel differently.
I tend to agree with you on that one about Dead Man. Definitely one of his, probably his opus.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I checked out a few things I wanted to just briefly touch. One thing we never ever really talk about on this show is video games.
Oh, okay.
And my girlfriend, again, she's a big gamer, and that's how she unwinds and relaxes. And she said, "Hey, I got this game called Quarry. You want to, I'm going to play it. You should come watch it." And I was thinking, why would I watch someone play a video game?
That's a thing, though. Honestly, there's like all these Twitch channels for that. Yeah.
But it's really more of like an interactive movie. First of all, it's for the PS5, and it has actors in it that you recognize.
Oh wow!
And they look almost real. Like the mom from Twin Peaks is in it. Sam Raimi's brother, Ted Raimi's in it. David Arquette, Lance Hendrickson, a lot of genre people. And it is an interactive game where you don't so much play it as you do like make decisions, and those decisions affect the outcome. If you can have, there's like 6 or 7 main characters. They can all live, they can all die. Some can live, some can die. And I got really caught up with that, just how invested into the story I was. It was a really cool, atmospheric, creepy game. And even if you're not like a big gamer, if you're a horror fan, I highly recommend this game, Quarry. It's a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. And this is coming from someone who doesn't play a lot of video games. I certainly don't watch a lot of people play video games. And I really had like a great time. no, don't say this, make this decision, or don't know, it's like, oh, open the door, don't open the door. Like, you know what I mean? Like anything you do affects the outcome. One of those games, like choose your own adventure kind of thing.
I'm intrigued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that I would love gaming. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, I was into it a little bit back in like, the 90s, with Doom and all that kind of stuff. And I would play for hours, dude. So now with the things the way they are, I fucked around a little bit. Like I have a Steam account, and I played Call of Cthulhu for a bit, and I was like, man, this is like I would be like up all night doing this shit. You know what I mean? Yeah.
She actually just played that as well.
Yeah.
It's cool. You get to wander around in the Lovecraft universe.
There's a lot of Lovecraftian games out there, actually.
Yeah, he's very popular, and there's a whole like genre of games that are inspired by his work, which is really not surprising. I mean, he pretty much is the godfather of anything horror.
Yeah, and that's specifically that style,
Yeah. But Quarry, it's a game for the PS5 or whatever you have, PC, Xbox, whatever. I think it's on all the platforms. Highly recommend it. You and I talked briefly. I saw The Northman, which I know you saw as well.
Mm-hmm.
You loved it, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I loved it too. Interesting though, it is my least favorite Robert Eggers movie, and I still think it might be the movie of the year to beat. Like it's fantastic, but I still like The Lighthouse and The Witch just a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There are mixed reviews about it. Some people hated it too, and it's probably not my favorite one of his films either. I think The Lighthouse is probably my favorite, honestly.
Yeah, that's my favorite as well.
Mm-hmm.
But still great nonetheless. Hasn't dethroned Valhalla Rising as weirdest Viking movie ever made, but it's more straightforward for Robert Eggers, but it's still pretty strange and probably unappealing to your average moviegoer.
Yeah, especially if people who want to check out like a sword and sorcery story are thinking like the Schwarzenegger Conan is like the way to go, you know?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
I love.
it is not
I mean,
that.
No, I mean,
Sure.
I've grown to like that version of Conan, but when I was a kid, what I expected Conan to be like was more like what the Northman was like. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I read all the short stories in the comics when I was like super, super young. And in my mind, Conan was more of this like, you know, character with intelligence and there was magic and stuff involved and monsters and, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's what I would love to see Eggers do, like a Conan or a King Kull movie, honestly.
Yeah, I think if they made Conan today, it would be more like that because nowadays there's more of an emphasis on getting things right.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, that was made in the 80s. It was more about we need a blockbuster, we need a big star, and, you know, like getting it right wasn't really a priority. Hence, you get Conan or you get like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher or something like even Tim Burton's Batman. As much as I like it, it's very different from the comics. Not saying he didn't get it right, but a lot of people were upset at the time of Tim Burton's take on Batman. I love his movies. Well, those Batman movies. I don't love all his movies.
Yeah.
Another thing I watched, sort of a genre picture, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I have no interest in seeing that, but what was your take on it?
I didn't like it. This movie came with a lot of hype. I remember my first time going to the Alamo Draft House to see the Batman. There was ads for this everywhere, and there was a trailer for it, and there's great reviews from critics, from fans, and so I was very excited to see it, and very, very disappointed. It felt more like a demo reel for them, like for Hollywood. Like, hey, look what we can do. We can do this now. Can we make a Marvel movie? Can we make a Fast and Furious movie now? You know, that's what it felt like to me. It was this faux philosophical mumbo jumbo. It didn't connect with me. It's not a bad movie. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, my impression after seeing the trailer for it at the Northman actually was that this is like the basic bitch version of the shit that I have been into for like the last 2 decades of my life. You know what I mean? Like this fucking mainstream attempt to get into the whole philosophical angle of like the multiverse and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you kind of nailed it. That's exactly how I felt. And the concept of a multiverse at this point, or a mainstream idea of it, we already have that in the Marvel universe. And I guess in the DC universe with the Flash movie coming up, it's going to be a thing. If that Flash movie ever gets released, apparently the actor who plays the Flash has been on like some sort of like insane crime spree. So he's kind of canceled. And how do you promote a movie where the star of the movie is, you know, constantly getting arrested and saying crazy shit? So I wouldn't be surprised if the Flash just quietly drops on, you know, some streaming service. But yeah, so Everything Everywhere All at Once, not my cup of tea. Other than that, I want to quickly mention Silicon Valley is the best comedy series ever made. I did a rewatch of that. Something to watch when I come home from work just to unwind, you know, little half-hour episodes. Watch that while I eat dinner before I go to bed.
You recommend that to me?
It's very, very funny. You know, the creator of the show is Mike Judge, who did Idiocracy and Office Space. And he has an eye for absurdities and things that are real. Like, his movies are absurd, but they're strangely like realistic and plausible. And I don't know much about the world of tech and billionaires or anything like that, but this is a heavy, you know, satire on that whole world. And it's very funny. And for if you want to break from all the bleakness that we talk about or that you watch, Silicon Valley.
I'll check it out, man. A lot of people have told me I would like it, so I'll look at. I think I need to laugh a little bit more these days, so maybe something that would be good for me.
And if you like Mike Judge, you know, it's not just brainless, empty-headed. It's smart. You know, it's satire. It's not just, you know, silly jokes, well, even though there is some of that. But it's very good, and it goes down quickly. You'll find yourself watching a couple episodes, 3 maybe, and before you know it, you've watched the whole 6 seasons.
So before we get into the actual film discussion, I just want to run down, the strong podcast cartel that will cover Monday through Friday of your listening experience. So from the top, Horrorwolf 666, featuring Brandon Legion and his very good, insightful interviews with luminaries within the horror industry. And, it's a great way to kick off your week. Tuesday, of course, we have the master of extreme metal, Jackie Smith, and Into the Necrosphere, which is I look forward to Tuesday to check out whatever he's got coming up. And I've learned so much about bands, learned about new bands to check out, learned very good information about bands that I already like. And it's a great episode, great show, rather, and definitely check it out. Wednesday is Everything Went Black, which was my flagship podcast, which has been going on for a while, and picking up steam. We got a Patreon. Got new members coming in almost on a weekly basis, and
that's great.
Yeah, man, it's going great, and that is a formatless sort of thing. I talk a lot about music, but not specifically about metal, and I don't always talk about music. There's always all kinds of things on there. I got all sorts of stuff coming up. A lot of it's music related. A lot of it's not. A lot of it's about literature and books, things like that. And of course, Thursday is Necromaniacs, which is currently what you're listening to. And Friday, we have the Scandato-led Break the Apocalypse, which features Mike's brother, John Draper. So yeah, that's the whole week, man. Monday through Friday, covered.
There you go. What else do you need, huh?
Yeah. So now that brings us to this week's episode, and Jeff and I are going to talk about Crimes of the Future, which is the brand new. It came out this year. David Cronenberg written and directed return to the horror genre.
Return to filmmaking in general. It's been, I think, 7 years since his last film.
Yes, true.
Which was Maps to the Stars.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of wondering, will we ever see another David Cronenberg movie? And very happy that he came out of quote unquote retirement to make this.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, like his last few films were dramas, really. They weren't anything to do with horror, and specifically body horror. And over the last few years, we've seen like the rise of that genre. And just a lot of other people, you can see his influence on them, including his son. We had his 2 films are very much within the body horror genre.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Cronenberg has gone through different shifts in his career. You can break it up into sections of sort of the early work where, The Brood, Shivers, you have all that. Then you have like the middle period when he started working with a different director of photography, Peter Shizitsky. I think he started working with him on Dead Ringers, and that seemed to be the beginning of another era where you get sort of the quintessential Cronenberg look that all of his movies seem to have. And then you have like the period of the 2000s where he makes Existenz, his last movie of the 90s, and then you get Spider, something very different, which was around the same time that he wrote this movie, Crimes of the Future. Of course, it was called something else back then. And that period is somewhat debatable amongst Cronenberg fans. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's personally, I think, one of my favorite eras, if not my favorite, of his career. I think Spider, A History of Violence, and Eastern Promises are 3 of his best films. And not necessarily my favorite, but they're 3 of his best.
I think I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. Like I'll watch a movie just because he directed it or wrote and directed it. You know what I mean? So he's definitely someone that's in my my list of filmmakers to explore their entire catalog.
Oh, sure. I would say maybe my favorite director of all time. When I first started becoming like a movie buff, I had the big three: David Cronenberg, Terry Gilliam, and Roman Polanski. And I just devoured everything those guys did. And David Cronenberg really, I found the most interesting. Was one of the first filmmakers where I could find common threads going throughout his movies. And I just kind of fell in love. And like even his movies that I don't particularly like are always, at least interesting. I can see why he made it. Because after the Eastern Promises, there's the late period of his career where he made Dangerous Method, Cosmopolis, Maps to the Stars, which people, I mean, I myself as a big fan, I didn't really connect with those movies.
Yeah, they were okay. Definitely good films, but yeah, I didn't particularly. They're not rewatchable to me, really.
Yeah, Cosmopolis, which does have some things in common with Crimes of the Future, is just very much went over my head. Like I did not know. I was like, who is this for? What is this really trying to say? It didn't really do much. And he made the movie about, Dangerous Method, about Carl Jung's correspondence with Freud. And, Cronenberg doing a movie like that, you think is going to be fascinating. And it's just kind of a dud.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would rather read like a book about that as opposed to see it as a film, really,
Yeah, that one just flat out didn't work for me. And Maps of the Stars is a mixed bag. I mean, I know Cronenberg considers that his comedy. I would not in a million years consider that movie a comedy. But
it's got a real creepy John Cusack in that.
Yeah, exactly. John Cusack, when used right, is great, and he's really great in that.
Yeah.
But the movie's sort of a mixed bag, like the whole Hollywood's such an evil, depraved place is well-worn territory, and not really sure why Cronenberg took an interest in that script. And I know that Bruce Wagner, who wrote it, is a friend of Cronenberg's, and they've been looking to collaborate on something for a while at that point. So maybe, that was it. Like, I'm just going to make a movie with my friend. But it's very much a mixed bag. Still worth checking out.
Yeah.
And then we get nothing for 7 years until a few months ago we get this, Crimes of the Future.
Yeah, so this is just some particulars about it. It's released on the May 23rd in Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival.
Cannes?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Cannes. May 25th in France, and then June 3rd in North America this year. Budget of $3.3 million. Runtime of 107 minutes. So it's a bit on the long side.
Yeah, especially for Cronenberg, who's more usually lean and mean, but
Yeah. Great cast, I have to say.
Mm.
Very, very well acted. I'm just going to run through who's in the film briefly. We got Viggo Mortensen, who has worked with Cronenberg in several films in the past, including, the Freud one. And
yes, he played Freud.
He played Freud.
He played Freud. Yeah, he did.
Eastern Promises, where he has my mom's favorite scene in all of film.
Would that be the bathhouse scene?
Yeah, the nude fist fight in the bathhouse. So my mom has brought that up on several occasions.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so my mom my mom loves Viggo Mortensen, I guess. So I get it. He's a good looking guy.
That is my favorite fight scene in a movie ever. I have to agree with it. It is one only David Cronenberg could make.
Yeah, we have Lee Seydoux as Caprice, and that's Mortensen's character is called Saul Tenser, and they're like a collaborative performance art troupe, the two of them. Kristen Stewart as Timlin, Don McKellar as Whippet, Scott Speedman as Lang Dalrice, And then we have Welkit Bungui, Detective Cope, and Leahy Karowski as Juna Daltrice. I feel like those are the main characters. And I forgot to write down the kid's name, so he's important too.
Right. Well, it's a very international cast, by the way.
Yes. Very
A
international.
lot of different accents going on. At times, I found the dialogue a little hard to understand. I did want to make a quick note.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sorry
a quick note about the actor Don McKellar in this movie. He directed a film called Last Night, which starred David Cronenberg and then unknown Sandra Oh.
Oh, wow.
And I highly recommend watching that to anyone listening. It's fascinating to see David Cronenberg act. And it's a very good movie. It takes place on the last night of the world, before the world ends, which I love shit like that.
Yeah. Well, Cronenberg was in Nightbreed. You get to see him act
a
lot in that movie. He plays Decker.
He's pretty much, the main character. He's also in Jason X, the only reason I went to the theater to see that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing I have to say about this cast is everyone is hot in this movie. You know what I mean? It's like a very, very, very attractive, sexy cast. I mean, even the guy who plays the cop, Detective Cope, Welkit Bungui, the African dude, he's shredded. He's got like abs, and it's like you think of cops as these kind of fat, lazy guys, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that really says something to the tone. Yeah, he's got like 1% body fat or something
totally,
ridiculous like that.
He looks like a soccer player or like some kind of model or something like that. I don't know. It's just funny. I thought that was really funny.
That is, and Viggo Mortensen's a handsome older guy. He's probably in his 60s, but he still looks great.
62 to be exact.
Wow.
Yeah.
His collaborations with Cronenberg are always. I think Cronenberg brings out something in Viggo Mortensen that I never saw before. Like before History of Violence, he was just the Lord of the Rings dude to me.
Sure.
And seeing him in that, like I was like, wow, this guy. And then seeing him in Eastern Promises was like, wow, man, like this guy is fucking great. I'll watch anything he's in. He picks interesting stuff. He's not just trying to be a movie star, cashing in his Lord of the Rings fame.
Yeah, he's. I mean, have you ever seen Reflecting Skin?
Yes,
Dude,
yes. I
great
forget that director's name, but he's made a few very interesting films, that director.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Viggo's. I think he's a great actor. Interesting guy. You know what I mean? He's like, he's just cool, everyone's really hot in this movie. We got the French actress Lee Seydoux, of course, Kristen Stewart, but she's kind of dressed down. But the funny thing about her, rather than casting like a more average-looking woman, Cronenberg casts this like beautiful young lady and dresses her down, but you can still see that she's like super hot. You know what I mean?
Right. And totally. And and there's a lot of hate on Kristen Stewart as an actress, and I think she's more than proven herself that she has talent. She made a great movie called Personal Shopper back in 2016. And I would bet $1 million Cronenberg saw that, and that's the reason he cast her. And she's very good in this. It's a small role. Not totally important to the story.
I think so. I think her character was was definitely a good element to move the plot along, actually.
And a little bit, I would almost say comic relief. Her character's a little funny. Well, I found.
Yeah. Definitely her character's funny in like a Daniel Close kind of way. If anyone who's read Daniel Close's comics would agree, I think. And she also sets up a little bit of tension between her and Caprice. Timlin and Caprice have like a little bit of tension, and it kind of creates this thing, and I think that helps move the plot along and kind of focuses like what's actually going on with Saul Tenser.
Sure. And you mentioned moving the plot along. I did not find this to be a plot-heavy movie at all.
No. It's definitely.
I tried something new with this. I usually watch the movie once and then watch it again and take notes. I just watched this and was like, I'm just going to like take it in, and then we'll talk about it in the next day. I watched it last night. And this is a movie that begs to be seen multiple times to fully understand it. I found it a little hard to follow at times, like who was who.
Yeah. The first time,
This movie,
especially the first time.
Well, like take a movie like Christopher Nolan's Inception. It's dense, very, very plot driven, but you have Elliot Page, now Elliot Page. That character is sort of the mouthpiece. Like they bring you into this world, and they ask the questions that the audience is thinking to themselves. So you have someone bringing you in to this world where dream espionage is a thing. This movie does not have that character. It throws you into this very bizarre alternate universe where every conversation is in English, but it feels like a different language. They're talking about like these highly philosophical ideas about the world they live in. There's no real setup. There's no one to guide you through it. You're just there. Like in a more traditional narrative movie, the detective we were talking about, he would be the main character, and we would be brought into this world through him.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And in a way, it's almost more like a Lynch film that way,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I do believe this movie did. I looked this up. I was correct because when I saw the trailer for this, I was like, "Oh, this is like the script Painkillers he was working on in the early 2000s." And then he abandoned the project because he's like, "This is well-worn territory for me. I want to try something else." I believe it was about someone looking into this world of rogue performance artists who perform surgery. I think that where the detective was the main character. So it's interesting, 20-something years later, that's not part of it anymore.
That's interesting, and that I feel like that's a very '90s thing with performance art, because back then, like, everyone was into being a modern primitive and splitting their cock down the middle and implanting horns in their head and that kind of stuff. Not everybody,
right?
But there was that was like a thing I remember reading about, like in Research magazine and like that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. And it's weird that this doesn't feel dated at all.
No, not at all.
For something that was written 20 years ago. And I mean, I'm sure they polished it off up a little bit to when you dust anything off after 20 years, you're going to find things you don't like about it. Anything you do. Like, I'm sure you have records that came out 20 years ago where you fucking, if I could change that, I would.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I would not do certain things at all that I did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But the environmental aspect of it might have been something that was revised to fit the current climate, maybe based on what's going on in the world right now, and versus what was more of a thing in the 90s, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, let's talk about that aspect of the world that this movie exists in. Cronenberg obviously is interested in technology, but his movies are always of this like tech that doesn't exist. There are no apps, there's no cell phones, there's no big screen TVs. This is a very drab, depressing world that this movie exists in. The paint is peeling and everywhere. Like the police station for the interrogation scene looks like an abandoned warehouse. The layer where they work on their performance art looks like an abandoned train station. It is a very bleak worldview. I think maybe his bleakest movie is in Spider.
Sure, I'll agree with that. Absolutely.
And it is in some kind of future. It doesn't say it's the distant, recent, where I get the sense the world was sort of on the brink of the end. Like things weren't going good.
Yes, and that's what I picked out as being the main theme of the film is the body slowly evolving to exist in a toxic world, so that this environmental catastrophe that seems to be the story takes place in the midst of would allow the human physiology to consume basically industrial waste like plastics, and plastic, that's like a big thing we talk about these days, like the plastic bottle, like miasma that's out in the middle of the ocean, that kind of thing, and it's inside fish and all that. So consuming plastic is like a very modern sort of thing. And and then there's also a whole movement to what the fuck's going on here? Weird.
Got some neighbors.
I hear voices. The
I heard them too, Mike. You're not going crazy.
I think it's like Siri trying to tell me something. I don't know, whatever. So yeah, there's this whole movement to keep the human body intact the way it was and eat regular food, you know, and they're removing these new organs, like that kind of stuff. So that's also, you can even look at that as like conservative versus liberals or something like that too, you know, like in a more like, you know, kind of esoteric, like obscure, like, you know, conflict, I guess, you know.
Sure, and I'm sure somewhat of that was somewhat on Cronenberg's mind. This really does seem like a comment on today's society and where we're heading and how we're evolving. A lot of classic Cronenberg themes, but, you know, some new ones, like you said. There's these sort of two stories that sort of intersect, and you're not really sure how they're going to intersect. Like the movie opens with, I think, the only like beautiful shot in the movie. And not to say the movie it looks bad, it looks great, but you have this kid playing in the sand, and you see this overturned like ocean liner in the sea. And you just sort of, you know, that's all you need to imply, that the things aren't going great.
Yeah, the world appears to be in ruin and on the brink of environmental holocaust, essentially, you know, catastrophe.
Right. And then within 5 minutes, we get a child murder, murdered. And, you know, that's Cronenberg does not shy away from the details. And you wonder how this is going to intersect with the rest of the story. And yeah, you have this whole other story about these, I'm not even sure what they were, but they were making plastic as food to try to save humanity.
Well, we see the kid eating a waste paper basket or, you know, plastic garbage basket in the bathroom. And it's like, he's just like, similar to The Fly, like he's like regurgitating this like stuff that onto it too. There's this white goo that comes out of his mouth, and he's just biting into this plastic, you know, container and eating it, you know. And, and the mother is like of the mindset of that this is like you know, a crime against nature or something like that, and we have to like put an end to this. Like you know, she has a more conservative thought where this isn't natural, you know, we should be eating food. So she murders her fucking kid, basically.
Right, and the father of this kid turns out to be the guy who was part of this eco-environmental group trying to make this new food. And it's interesting, some people reject it, and it kills them. I guess they haven't fully evolved yet. Major theme of this movie is Viggo Mortensen seems more evolved in some way than anyone in the movie. He grows new organs, and that is the gist of their whole entire performance art, where his partner, what's her name?
Caprice.
Removes these organs for an audience, and this is the new sex. People don't have sex anymore. People don't feel pain anymore. So this is some sort of bizarre new form of entertainment.
It's a fucking kinky movie, man. You know what I mean? It's like the whole movie is like charged with this like energy, this like sensual energy, and you know, it's very visceral, like very of the body. You know, there's all this like weird sexual practices going on, you know, that involve like cutting and putting your hand inside someone's body, and it's like very, very kinky, this movie. You know?
Oh yeah, like I wrote down, this most resembles Crash and Existence.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it's definitely like a Ballard-esque take on the future,
which he would have written around the time he made those films. When he wrote Painkillers, which was, you know, the late 90s, which would be right after Existence, which came after Crash. Maybe not right after Crash, but And that the movie definitely has a lot in common. Like, people with new orifices. Viggo Mortensen's body has all these plugs in it. Again, another Cronenberg theme, that technology is an extension of the human body. First you make a fist, and then a gun is just an extension of your fist, a tool to hurt someone, or an automobile. Whereas before you walk, now we drive. He's very interested in the way technology affects the human body because it comes from us, and then in his movies it comes back into us, like with new orifices. And at one point, Viggo Mortensen has a zipper on his stomach, like he has this pouch or a zipper, and it's like a new sort of sex organ. It's supposed to be seen as sexy. And so I would agree with your assessment that this is a very sexy, sexually charged movie, much like Crash.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And, and you have these like beautiful women in it, and it's just, like Lee Seydoux is a beautiful woman. She's nude. There's some really good nudity in this film too, by the way.
Not gratuitous though. It makes sense. I would say Cronenberg is not a gratuitous filmmaker. Everything has a purpose in one of his movies.
Yeah, it's not like the random shower scene that you would have in like a slasher film. Like, it's definitely part of narrative of the story, and it makes sense. But nonetheless, it's it's great. I really enjoyed those parts, honestly.
That's cool. Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Interesting. And another thing about and this is a bleak, decrepit, crumbling world where performance art is the new sex. People don't feel pain, but Viggo Mortensen always appears to be in pain.
Well, I was going to bring that up because Viggo is growing Viggo is growing new Mortensens. No, Viggo's character, Saul Tenser, is growing new organs in his body, which imply that he's evolving. It's interesting because there's two different ways of looking at it. Some people think, they're tumors, like the cop. He's like, I have this lump on my abdomen, and that's when he pulls up his shirt to display his like 12-pack abs, and this like tumor that he's got growing on him. So there's that conservative mindset where it's like, it's a tumor, let's remove it. And then there's the other philosophy of like the human body's changing to meet the toxic world that we're living in. So let's embrace that and move into the future. And then there's like the kind of in between that space that Viggo kind of occupies, where he's like, we're making art, with him and Caprice, and removing these organs and tattooing them and all that kind of stuff is like part of this like artistic statement that they're making, but Viggo is trying to hang on to the vestiges of the past, where he has this weird chair that's supposed to help him digest, and he's eating this gruel that just looks, the whole process looks like painful, uncomfortable, horrible, really, really fucking bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this sort of undulating nightmare chair. But it looks like that, again, for a reason. If you watch any interview with Cronenberg, he talks about like technology being human, being part of us because it comes from us. So it makes sense that chair would seem like a living, breathing, fleshy thing. And all of the tech Viggo Mortensen has to use to, he sleeps in a special bed, which has things connected to him. I'm not sure exactly what it said why it was connected or what it did. I missed it. But he needs to sleep in a special bed, and they perform this performance art on this slab that has these very human-looking knives, surgical tools that look almost like, skeleton hands.
It's very Giger-esque, all this like stuff that they're doing. It's like some H.R. Giger like nightmare technology,
That's interesting. I did not pick up on that, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and that was a big part of his
Giger.
Yeah, that was a big undercurrent in his work too. His artwork.
Yeah.
So makes sense.
I would imagine they're mutual fans of each other.
Probably, 100%, man, no doubt, definitely.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't pick up on that. But again, in a different director's hands, this movie, the bed would look more like a bed, or it would just look more normal. But it's like the chair would be more techy, but instead it's this weird undulating fleshy thing, not unlike the video game system in Existence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of well-worn territory for David Cronenberg. But at the same time, it doesn't really feel like he's paying homage to himself. You know what I mean? He's not like trying to come out of retirement and say, I'm the guy, I'm the body horror guy. It really just feels like something, these are themes that just interest him, and he keeps kind of going back to them.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like a continuation of all of his work, actually. It just feels like, all right, I'm back. I'm going to continue my story. This is some of the ideas I've played around with before, but now this is where I'm going with it, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's just playing around with it in a more familiar context, whereas in A History of Violence and Eastern Promises, it's revisiting those themes, but in different ways. Like everything, the mantra of this movie is body is reality. And that is a theme throughout all of his movies. You have that scene in Eastern Promises where Viggo Mortensen disrobes, and his story is being read by these dons, these head of the gangster families, and they're reading his story through his body, through his tattoos.
Wow, dude, that makes perfect sense to me, but I never thought of it that way. That's interesting.
I honestly think that was very Cronenberg esque. Like, I love that scene. And then of course you have the scene in the bathhouse where someone is naked and fighting for their life.
My mom's favorite scene.
Your mom's favorite scene. Yeah. Or you have A History of Violence, which lingers on the after effect of someone getting shot, someone getting punched. Someone at one point, a guy gets shot through the head and the bullet comes out his jaw, and there's a very, close up on it. So I don't think Cronenberg has ever really left these ideas. I just think he found different ways to explore them, and now he's coming back to a more familiar science fiction-y sort of a way to express these ideas.
I'm on board with that idea, and it makes total sense to me that it's like the impact of technology on the human form. That's really interesting.
Yeah, the tech is almost like a character. I mean, when you really look at this movie, I said it's not very plot driven. It's more idea driven. Like this movie has no villain. There's no bad guy.
No, it doesn't.
There's not really a lot of conflict. It's just more about ideas. Weird ideas, but ideas nonetheless. Like there is at one point they talk of a organ beauty pageant.
I know, right? That's like pretty out there, really.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this movie. Yeah, there's an organ registry.
Well, I was going to bring that up. That's definitely let's talk about that, because that's also a very likely thing to happen when you think about governments, and it's like, okay, there's this thing going on where people are growing new organs. So we have to set up a whole organization to register all of these new organs and track everything and make a database of who has what and that kind of thing. And that's where we come into Kristen Stewart's character and Don McKellar. They're the two people that run this whole organization. And
they're constantly referred to as bureaucrats.
Yeah.
And, there seems to be a distaste from the artist community towards these people.
Yeah, because that's where it's similar to how you think about the conflicts we have with freedom of expression or freedom of speech. And before, in the 90s, it used to be about Robert Mapplethorpe or something like that, and the government cracking down on him and trying to accuse him of some kind of crime, and
right.
now it's like people who are espousing false narratives, and their right to free speech and all that sort of stuff, freedom of expression. But but in this case, yeah, it's like these free thinkers who are investigating these new organs and removing them, and doing this stuff like underground are being tracked by the government. So there's that kind of that topic is being explored with this National Organ Registry.
Yeah, I found that aspect of it didn't really go anywhere. I think that was more just to set up maybe like the somewhat romantic interest between Viggo Mortensen and Kristen Stewart, because you have this bureaucrat sort of mousy person who is very intrigued by this strange world of performance art.
Well, I kind of think I look at it a couple of different ways. Like if this were to actually happen, I definitely think that an organization like this would come into existence, though, for sure. Where there would be this bureaucratic, connection to some sort of biological phenomenon. I mean, we have tons of that stuff already. We have the FDA, things like that.
Sure, yeah, and Cronenberg's movies have a way of aging very well, where it's like you see Videodrome, which sort of predicted the internet in a
totally.
weird way.
Yeah. And then we also have Timlin, this repressed, very mousy young lady who works for this organization, which is sort of in opposition to all of this stuff that's going on with this underground art scene. Yet she's obsessed with Saul Tenser and obsessed with going to these events and all this stuff. And it kind of speaks to the general hypocrisy of the kind of more like authoritarian stuff that goes on with the government. How you get a guy who's like some staunch Republican who wants to crack down on gay marriage, yet he's getting his dick sucked in like a truck stop somewhere,
Yeah, right, exactly. This guy who does this organization, the registry for organs, also wants to put on a beauty pageant for these organs, but he's very secretive about it.
Right, and that's kind of like what I feel like that was in the film for that demonstration of hypocrisy.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, because art is also a big theme in this movie, where I think Cronenberg is trying to Viggo Mortensen's character is literally showing what's inside of him. And I really think that is some sort of metaphor for the artist, for maybe David Cronenberg himself. Like, I am making this, I'm showing you who I am, I'm showing you what I think.
That's a good point. And then there's also that other guy they show with the ears,
Yes, and the ear man.
Yeah, the ear guy, and there he actually was being criticized, by being like, well, he's a better dancer than this other thing, because they kind of look at him as like sort of this poser, I guess,
Yeah, which is not unlike petty squabbles we've had in our music scene of these people aren't the real deal, they're fucking posers.
Oh,
know what
totally.
I mean?
That happens all the time, man, for sure.
That is a very real thing, I think, in any form of art. I do have to say, visually, that was one of the more impressive parts of the movie. The guy with, I don't know, how many ears do you think he had? Maybe 10,
a lot.
20?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You must have the best hearing in the world. You could probably listen to 4 different albums all at once and take it all in.
The question, I guess, is how many of them actually work, though?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. I think they said something about that, actually, about how not only like a handful actually worked.
I would have liked to seen more of that character, but it's just sort of not a throwaway. Like I said, it sets up petty squabbles between the artists, things like that. Like what it says about art in general looks great, but does it mean anything? What was I going to say?
But yeah, that definitely sets up this sexual tension between Kristen Stewart's character and Viggo's character. And what I thought at the performance when she's there's you can see that female territorialism come to the surface. You know what I mean? Between Caprice and Timlin.
A little bit.
Yeah. Which was Timlin's obviously a little bit younger, You know, Caprice is like has been working with Saul Tenser for a long time, and they have this relationship. And they're even though they might not be having sex in the traditional way, they're having sex basically, because even that little controller looks like a vagina. You know, the whole thing is very sexy. You know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I took notice of that too. Their relationship isn't romantic, but it's very sexual and in some ways closer than a typical relationship. Like they know each other so well.
Well, I would say it's definitely romantic, but the sex is not the way we think of it, you know. And the other thing to keep in mind too is the female is actually invading the male body too. You know what I mean? Like she's putting things inside of him, she's opening him up, and like it's kind of like this, like Viggo's being penetrated, by Caprice,
Right.
So yeah,
there's also that's interesting. That's an interesting point I didn't think of. There's also two characters that I found a little like, again, I only saw this once. I had a hard time figuring out who they were and how they fit into the movie. They're like, they work for the bureaucrats or something, but they're also assassins.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. Those technicians who like come and fix up this technological stuff. These like weird. Yeah.
Yeah. They sort of fall into this world but they also seem to serve a purpose, because at some point, they take someone out of the picture. Let's just say, in a very gruesome way too, where someone is penetrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, men being penetrated by females. It's like, that's kind of I noticed that as being a recurring theme in this film. And, but speaking about these two, I forgot their names, but the two technicians or whatever, there's one scene that's a little gratuitous and it involves them. And, they go over to, Saul and Caprice's place to fix up one of the Sark, I guess is what it's called.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, check us out. We're performance artists." And they pan over and they're naked, laying in the Sark. And I'm like, right on, man. Like, I'm glad to see that Cronenberg's not above a little bit of exploitation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, something harkens back to his old days. But I think that scene is supposed to play out as humorous. I think David Cronenberg's, I think that's his maybe sense of humor. I mean, Cronenberg is an incredibly smart guy.
Yeah.
And nothing is by accident in his movies. I mean, it's interesting. He's just an interesting filmmaker. I mean, he's not a student of film like when you watch something by Quentin Tarantino, where it's like a million references to a million other movies. David Cronenberg is more of like, he would have been a scientist if he wasn't a filmmaker.
Oh yeah, totally, man. Yeah, all of his stuff comes from the inside, not so much the external world.
Right, exactly. And I remember seeing an interview with him about him being fascinated by insects. He's like, we don't have to look to outer space for alien life. It's right here. And like, look at these things. Like, they are conscious. They have a body just like we have a body. What's their reality like? Very interesting thing to think about, and something I often think about. Like, how do you what does my cat think about during the day?
Oh, I think about that all the time, man, when I look at my cat, for sure.
Yeah, like, are they aware that someday they're going to die? And that's really, I mean, that's Cronenberg in a nutshell. The mantra of this movie is the body is reality. And that is prevalent in all of his movies. Everything begins and ends with the human body. I think that's what makes him such an interesting genre filmmaker. There's no demons. There's no ghosts. There's no any of that. In this movie, there's not even a villain. I mean, has Cronenberg really ever made a horror movie? I don't think in his mind he sees this as horror movies. I think he sees this as things that can happen to the body. Or I think this is really just about his existential philosophy that there's no God, we're on our own, and someday we will not exist.
Yeah, well, that ties in with like more like a weird tale. You know what I mean? Like, I think that
sure.
In a lot of ways, like, he's similar to Lovecraft in that sense. Where there's the world is all material, and all of this like stuff that we might perceive as magic or demonology or entities is just part of the world that we are experiencing, and is like we might not have the language or the means to really understand it.
Right. Exactly. And although I think Cronenberg was probably a nicer guy than H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, Lovecraft, by all accounts, it was had very limited capacity for compassion or human interactions.
Yeah, he was kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Whereas Cronenberg, I could listen to him talk for hours, because after this movie, I'll say one thing about this movie. It really made me remember how much I love Cronenberg and what a fan I am. And I had kind of forgotten about it because it's been a long time since he made a film, and his last few films didn't really land with me. But watching this, I remember like how excited I was to see Existence for the first time, to see these new worlds that only he can create. You can see his influence in everybody's work, and not everybody's work, but in a lot of people's work. But having some fleshy, undulating chair makes sense in a David Cronenberg movie, whereas if someone else did it, it's just sort of paying homage to him.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a reason that chair looks like that, and that's just what makes him such a fascinating director, because I kind of share his philosophy about life. We didn't exist for eternity. We're here. We're conscious that we will not be here, and then we won't exist. We won't exist someday. That is horrifying, but it's a philosophy I share with him. It begins with birth, and then we die, and then we never ever exist again.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it ties into like, Ligotti and all this other stuff, all these like nihilistic philosophies, that are out there as well.
Yeah, but I would not consider Cronenberg's movies nihilistic. And there's something I wanted to ask you about this movie. Did you find it hopeful at all in the end, or depressing or negative? Like, when it ended, what were you thinking? I don't want to give away the ending, but
yeah,
I was
because it's
you
new.
thought.
I want people to see it. I felt like the ending was a little depressing, I guess, but yet at the same time a little hopeful. I didn't think it was a negative ending, but it was like a somber ending, I guess, to use another term.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. To be honest, when credits started to roll, I wasn't sure what I thought about this movie at all. I found the dialogue to be, this is one of the most dialogue heavy movies I think we've covered, maybe the most dialogue heavy movie we've covered.
Well, the Benson and Morehouse films are very dialogue heavy, and something like Black Mountain Side is like almost all dialogue. So yeah, it's up there. It's up there with those, though, for sure.
Okay. Let me rephrase that then. The dialogue in those movies, they're talking about things you understand. When two people have a conversation in this movie, I felt like, what? I was completely like, what are they fucking talking about?
Yeah, okay.
It's not really exposition. It's more like spouting philosophy, or like I had a hard time connecting the characters and how they all related to each other. So when the credits were rolling, I was like, man, I don't know what I think about this movie. But the more time went on, the more I thought about it, the more excited I got about it, the more I was just like, man, I can't stop thinking about this movie. It's so just overflowing with interesting ideas that is something to latch on to and think about, rather than the plot of this movie, which I found a little hard to follow at times. And who was who, and Viggo Mortensen has some relationship with this detective who's investigating like the murder of this child, but not really. I found that stuff a little confusing. Maybe it'll be cleared up second viewing. But it was more the ideas and Cronenberg's themes that I really gravitate towards, and why ultimately I really, really liked this movie.
I'm with you on that. Like, it's not perfect, and I felt like there were definitely some loose ends and plot points that didn't really get resolved or any, but But the overarching theme in this movie I thought was real strong, and the performances are great. It looks awesome, and what I like Vigo's whole outfit that he wears. You know.
Yeah, he kind of looks like a superhero and a hobo at the same time.
Yeah, I think I might start dressing like him moving forward in my
Yeah.
life. That'd be cool.
I kind of feel a little disappointed that I didn't dress like that during the pandemic. Like go to the grocery store with like this shawl around my face and like this cloak over my head.
Yeah,
you know?
totally, man. He looks great in as a
missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you were going to give this movie a grade, what would you give it?
Strong 4.
Yes, I agree. Maybe even 4.5. It's interesting when I watched it yesterday. I was like, well, it's not a 3 because 3 is the lowest recommendation. Like a B- would be a 3.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe it's a 3.5. And then when I was laying in bed, just thinking about this movie, and then I started watching YouTube interviews with David Cronenberg. I was like, maybe it's a 4. Like
yeah,
I think
totally.
it's a 4.
Fours are like when you're thinking about getting the Blu-ray and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna get this on Blu-ray when it comes out.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, by tomorrow it might be a 4.5. It may end up in my top 10 or top 5 of the year. It's great to have David Cronenberg back. He's 80 years old, and his filmmaking hasn't shown any signs of just kind of giving up and losing his passion. Like it's still very much there. This looks and feels and sounds like a David Cronenberg movie. I think Howard Shore, his frequent collaborator, who does all the music for his films, always plays a big part in his movies.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention too. Is the score is really compelling in this film too. I really enjoyed the score. I'll probably pick that up too, actually.
Yeah, his scores, Howard Shore's scores for Cronenberg films are always my favorite of his, because he also did the Lord of the Rings movies, and he can do these big, grandiose scores, and then he can do something sort of quiet and somber, like he does with Cronenberg, like the guitar-based score for Crash or the sad piano in Spider. And in this, it's just sort of this downbeat, depressing a little bit of a score, and it plays a big part in this movie.
Yeah, and Cronenberg, 80 years old, still sexy too, man.
Yeah, I don't think he's lost one hair on his head. He's got a perfect head of hair. What the fuck?
Well, I'm talking about the film. The film just being like one of the most just
I know.
real.
Yeah.
Fucking kinky, man. The whole movie just has this like aura about it of sex and like all this like restraint and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and again, another very common theme in Cronenberg's work is to introduce, like, you take a history of violence. There's 2 sex scenes in that movie. One, when Viggo Mortensen is the guy he's hiding out as, he's having sex with his wife, and then when it's discovered he is really this other guy, they have sex again, and that is a very Cronenberg thing. Like, look at how different, he has sex because he's this other. This is who he really is, and it's like character development through sex scenes. So it doesn't really surprise me that this movie is very sexual, very kinky, very, so it's to the point where Caprice licks Viggo Mortensen's new zipper.
Yeah.
And God, in someone else's hands that could be laughable, but Cronenberg's hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I really, at 80, you wonder how much someone has left as far as filmmaking. It takes a long time to get a movie off the ground. I really hope we see a few more from him.
Absolutely, man. That was Maria Bello was in History of Violence, right?
Yes, she was Viggo Mortensen's wife.
Yeah. Another blonde lady with dark eyes
Yes.
and dark eyebrows. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, History of Violence, very kinky movie. There's some kinky shit going on in that. So I hope we see more. I mean, we have Brandon Cronenberg, who's young and seems to be carrying the mantle for his father, but he's kind of doing his own thing as well.
100% he's doing his own thing, and I'm real excited about his future and see what he brings to the table, no doubt.
Me too. And to have two Cronenbergs in the world now making films is, I mean, it's a great thing. And I'm really happy that in 2022 we finally got a new one, and it's good, and it's really good. But I would wonder, who do you recommend this movie to? Like, the average moviegoer is going to hate this.
Yeah, that's the thing. You and I love it, and I wouldn't recommend it to somebody who is only watching like slasher films, or you know what I mean. It's definitely not for everyone. If you're a fan of David Lynch, you know, and you know, say you're talking to someone, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I love Mulholland Drive." They're like, "Okay, go check out this movie if you haven't seen any of his other films, or if you've seen his other films. If you have a background in liking his older films, then that definitely you'll like this. But if you're just like someone who watches like the Fast and Furious, and you know, you're not going to dig this at all, you know."
Yeah, you're going to be bored out of your mind. You're going to be confused. You're going to this is doesn't move to the traditional narrative beats of normal films. It moves at its own pace, reality, whatever you want to call it. It's completely its own thing, narratively speaking. And even like you say, I can imagine a lot of horror fans not really enjoying this because it doesn't really follow. I mean, is it even a horror movie? Like I said, does David Cronenberg really make horror movies? He makes things where horrific things happen, but nothing supernatural happens.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. Like for example, that's like saying is Alien a horror movie? You know, I mean, Alien is like there's nothing supernatural in there. It's just that there's a fucking alien, but that's part of the natural world. You know.
Well, what I mean to say is I don't think David Cronenberg sets out to make horror movies. I think he just makes things where horrific things happen.
Yeah. Okay.
To the body, it's its own genre, you know, body horror.
Yeah.
A term which he sort of is like, yeah, whatever. I don't really consider that when I make a movie, you know.
Totally.
Like, every time I make a movie, I start fresh.
Yeah.
And what happens. He's like, I don't have to have a certain thing in the movie to make it my movie. He also talks a lot about casting, and he's like, if you cast your movie right, half your job is done before you've even started filming. And I gotta say, he always has a great cast, always has good actors in his movies, giving interesting performances. Like I said, like Viggo Mortensen was the Lord of the Rings guy until I saw him in a Cronenberg movie. Robert Pattinson was the fucking heartthrob from Twilight. And then he goes and makes Cosmopolis with David Cronenberg, and people are like, "Oh, this guy's a legit actor."
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I didn't even know who the fuck he was until I started seeing him in films like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I saw one Twilight movie, and it was hysterical. I mean, just the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, I can't go there, man. I can't. I had no interest in those films, and I didn't even know who the actors were, and I learned that Kristen Stewart was in it after seeing that movie that takes place on Staten Island or whatever, where she's like, it's like the one with the amusement park. I can't remember the name of that.
Oh, Adventureland.
Yeah, Adventureland.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And then it's
me
like,
too.
oh, she was in Twilight. And the same thing with Pattinson. Like when I saw him in like Cronenberg films, then I was like, oh, that's the guy from Twilight. And I was like, oh, really? Good for him.
Yeah, and now look at him. He's fucking Batman.
Yeah, but,
you know?
I mean, he's Batman, but he's also a really solid, incredible actor, and probably one of the best actors of his generation, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. And sort of egoless, like he can play second fiddle in the Lighthouse to Willem Dafoe, who has the showier, talkier role, or he could be like the second lead in Tenet, where he's not the main guy.
Yeah,
you know, he's all about the acting and just, you know, or you know, like I love him when he's the lead in something small, like Good Times, which is
that's incredible.
That's going to be in 20 years or 10 years even a classic, something they'll probably show in film school. You know, like they do with Scorsese. I think it's that good.
I agree.
And he's great in it.
Totally.
And Kristen Stewart, also from the Twilight franchise, is here, and she's in this movie. She's really good in it, and more than proven herself that she's not just a pretty face.
100%, man. So
yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone out there, and take a chance and see this film. And I mean, if you're not a Cronenberg fan, or if you're not familiar with his films, definitely take a chance. I think people will get something out of watching this for sure.
I agree.
Yeah. We'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Take care.